Hi there. In this video, we'll be covering how to hire the perfect ghostwriter for your book. Choose the right ghostwriter, and you could own your message and transform your life. Choose wrong, and it could cost you lots of time, effort, money, and maybe your book doesn't even get finished. By the end of this video, you will learn where to find ghostwriters, why you need to do your homework when choosing a ghostwriter, and setting the right terms for a contract that's going to give you a lot of peace of mind. And stay tuned until the end of the video for a free opportunity. Let's dive in. First things first, why to hire a ghostwriter? There's so much power that can come with working with a ghostwriter. Ghostwriting is kind of a nebulous thing. It's confusing. What is it exactly? I'm sure you've Googled it or searched around and struggled to really understand it, but it's a transformative process. This is about taking your story and telling it in the strongest way possible. It's about empowering you, and it's about sharing your message in the most powerful way that's going to resonate with people and change somebody's life. It could change somebody else's life. It could change your life. There's so much power behind your story, and working with a ghostwriter can help you tell it in the best way possible. It's one thing to understand about the power and importance of a ghostwriter. It's another thing entirely to find the ghostwriter and the right one for you. It's so easy to get sucked up in the wrong places with the wrong ghostwriters, and you could find somebody who doesn't have the same credibility that you need. You could wind up hiring the wrong ghostwriter, and what if they plagiarize your work? What if they write something that isn't really what you want it to be? The author-ghostwriter relationship is really all about trust. And this is all about finding a ghostwriter you can trust and finding a ghostwriter that's going to do the best work possible to help you bring your story forward. When I think about finding ghostwriters, one of the first places I look is LinkedIn. The social media platform is great for networking and great for finding professionals. And it's awesome to be able to look within your network and see the connections that you might share with ghostwriters. You might have a friend who can actually connect you with somebody. Or you might have a mutual connection who actually worked with the ghostwriter in question. That referral process, it's great for the ghostwriter because it kind of helps bring somebody in who kind of understands exactly what they do. But on the flip side of it, it's helpful because here's somebody you can trust. Here's somebody who has a background you can believe in. Here's a project they worked on with a client. Those are important things to keep in mind. Thinking about your network, thinking about the connections you have and who can connect you with a ghostwriter, and LinkedIn is a great place for that. Reedsy is another website that I highly recommend. This is a marketplace for book professionals. You can go to that site and find all kinds of book professionals, and these are people who are thoroughly vetted. The process to be listed on Reedsy is super competitive and really difficult, so you're working with the best of the best. And if you send a request for services, you'll get responses pretty quickly within a day, and the people that you are considering working with will send you a pitch, they'll send you their scope of work, they'll send you the rate that they would work for, and it's just a really collaborative, transparent process. Another great resource is Gotham Ghostwriters, which has been around for 15 plus years and boasts a network of thousands of high-quality ghostwriters. So every time a project comes through, a pitch is sent out to all of the people in the list, and everybody has a chance to apply for it and be considered for it and potentially be interviewed. I've been interviewed for a couple projects through that platform, and it's just a neat process. It's a really transparent, open process. When you think about spending tens of thousands of dollars to work with a ghostwriter to write your book, you want to know who they are, you want to know a little bit about their background, you want to know the kinds of books they've worked on. You want to know if the books they've worked on are similar or overlap with the types of book that you're interested in writing. It doesn't need to be the exact same niche, it doesn't have to be the exact same topic, and they don't necessarily need to be a subject matter expert, but they should have some experience telling stories similar to yours or that have overlapping themes, because you want to know that this is somebody who can guide you forward. You want to know that this is somebody who can help you tell the best book possible. And before you engage with anybody, you really want to know who you're working with. You want to have the peace of mind to to know you're working with the right person. This whole process is really all about doing your homework. It's really about taking the time, putting in the effort, and making sure that you're making the right choice for your project. Because it's so easy to fall in line with the first person that comes across your plate, the first person that comes across your radar. You know, maybe there's somebody in your network who's worked with a book ghostwriter in the past and they connect you with them. That doesn't necessarily mean that they're the right fit for you. It means that they were the right fit for that other project. Along those lines too, the type of ghostwriter you need could vary greatly depending on the type of book and the type of message you're sharing, and also the kind of audience that you're trying to connect with. If you have a very specialized focus for your book, you're going to want to know that the person who's working as your ghostwriter has some understanding of telling stories within that niche. So the more narrow you go and the more specialized you go, you're going to want to find somebody who has those perspectives and experiences. If you're trying to reach a wider audience, you want to go with the more generalized ghostwriter, someone who has experience writing more general purpose stories. You know, I really pride myself on working on lots of different projects, and that's something that really came from my news days. I worked for a long time in journalism and breaking news, and I would be tasked with jumping on any story that came across my plate. You know, anything that happened in the world, I was jumping on. And I approach books similarly. You know, I really do. I think it's great to be able to expand your horizons and learn new things and meet and connect with new people and jump into different worlds and jump into different approaches. And if I was writing the same book on the same niche again and again and again, I would burn out really quickly. But as a ghostwriter, I love being able to jump and put on different hats. And now I'm writing about collaboration. Now I'm writing about music. Now I'm writing about sports. Now I'm writing about business, on and on and on. Like, it's awesome to be able to tell these different stories. But as a ghostwriter who focuses on general readership books, I can see the connective threads in all of these projects. They're all really kind of similar. We're all trying to tell something similar in a way. So it's special to see the connective thread that unites us and brings us together as, you know, storytellers, but story consumers, that we really want to learn something special and valuable. And that's what this is about. This is about bringing your message forward so people can connect to it and learn from it and grow from it. That they can take your story and carry it with them in the world. And if you want to connect to a wider audience, you want to work with a ghostwriter who has an understanding of being able to do that. The other reality too is that the more specific your ghostwriting needs are, the more likely it is that the ghostwriter could write that book themselves. If I was a subject matter expert, I don't need to work with an author. I can just write the book myself. So it's a balance. It's a balancing act. But as you approach your topic, it's important to figure out how specific you want to get with the type of ghostwriter, because if you have a very dense and heavy legal topic and your ghostwriter doesn't know anything about that world, that's going to be really difficult. You know, but if your story is a sports story about a high school cross-country team, that's going to be a lot easier to find a ghostwriter who might not have specific cross-country experience, but they have sports experience. They understand how to tell a sports story, so it's going to be easier for them to be a good fit for the project. When you want to engage a ghostwriter, you really need to interview them. Take the time to talk to them. Get to know them a little bit. Ask them questions. I love being able to have those conversations when I'm considering working with an author. And sometimes it's a great fit and sometimes it's not a great fit. Sometimes I leave the call saying, I sure hope they find the right person for their project. And sometimes I've even recommended another ghostwriter to them that maybe they have a specific niche in mind and I know somebody who can help them. I think it's important to be able to find the right fit for your project. This is about building a long-term relationship. You know, when you think about dating and you're thinking about speed dating, you know, you don't just sit down with the first person you're talking to and think, okay, we're going to go out for a long time. You see what's there. You see if there's a good connection there. And if there's a connection there, then you proceed and then you keep talking. I think that's similar to ghostwriting in a way. You don't want to just jump in to the first ghostwriter you find and start working together, that's a recipe for disaster. You really need to make sure it's the right fit. This is going to be a long-term relationship. Even if the book only takes 3 to 6 months, which is pretty standard for a straightforward book, that's a lot of meetings. That's a lot of time to work together. And if that relationship is strained or difficult, it's going to undermine the entire project. You want this to be as seamless as possible, and you want to take away all of the friction points you can. And by interviewing your ghostwriter, by talking to them, by interviewing their references and learning about their process and their approach and their success rate and what it means to work with them, it's going to allow you to make the best choice possible and give yourself the best chance to succeed with this book. I've seen it far too often where an author will begin working with a ghostwriter and lose faith in them. And there is nothing that ghostwriter can do to change it. The momentum's gone. Everything just kind of feels stressful and tense. And the ghostwriter is under the gun. They're not doing the best work possible because they feel like they can't really, they can't meet the expectations. They can't meet the moment. It's really a tough thing. And it's a lack of trust. When trust isn't there, this relationship between the ghostwriter and the author, it's not a good thing. It's really strained. It's really difficult. There's a lot of micromanaging and scrutiny, and I don't know. I've worked on projects like that where I feel like I'm being micromanaged, and it's an insecurity factor. But I don't do my best work when I'm micromanaged. I want to do great work for my clients, and I can do that great work when I know I'm the right fit and when I can just be allowed to bring my best to the table. And I mentioned references a couple minutes ago. I encourage people who want to work with me to talk to my past references. I really do. I think it's great for them to get a feel for it. I want them to understand what this process looks like. Partially because I want them to have every opportunity possible to walk away if this isn't right for them. I don't want to get somebody stuck into a contract that they can't get out of, into a situation where they feel like they're just stuck. I don't want that. I want them to feel empowered and excited, and I want you to feel the same way. I want you to be excited about this process. I want you to feel excited to get emails from your ghostwriter of, I have new material, I want you to review it, or jumping on a call together. I want you to get excited about that. Because the process to write a book is very difficult, but the more excited you can be to work with your ghostwriter, the easier this process is going to be. All right, now that you have a ghostwriter in mind, you have a great fit, it just seems like you're all on the same page, inevitably the conversation turns to money and budget and how that gets structured. I like to approach that conversation with as much flexibility as possible because everybody's financial situation is a little bit different. And it's not an easy conversation, but it's important to be able to talk through it and find the right solution. When I meet with prospective clients and they talk to me about they don't have the money to work with me, I talk to them about other services I offer. Maybe I do coaching support. Maybe it's something else. There's a couple ways that you can go about it. One is milestone based, and that's really based on the ghostwriter completing different tasks and being paid for those tasks. A lot of times I will organize the project around 6 different milestone payments, and every time I complete one of those tasks to a satisfactory level, I get paid that money. And I start the project with money up front and then work on milestones from there, and that could be 4 or 5 different milestones. So that breaks the money into 5 or 6 different payments, which is one process. Another option is monthly payments, and I've been doing that more frequently with some of my recent clients. And I like the flexibility around that, and I like the ability for the clients to meet me where they are. And being able to meet clients where they are is so important. I've worked for companies before that were very structured and regimented in terms of payments and services, and I like the flexibility of being able to meet people where they are. So if they can only pay me a certain amount of money per month, these are the services I can provide. So it's really finding a good fit between services and money and finding a fair rate for everybody. Ghostwriting isn't cheap, But ultimately, I don't like the services being devalued because I know it's on the opposite side of that. You know, I've had clients I've worked with who I've written a book with them, and then they've turned around and sold tens of thousands of dollars of coaching support services because somebody read the book and liked it and wanted to work with the client. So there's money to be had, and there's opportunities to be had when you work with a ghostwriter. So I see that. You know, it can transform somebody's life. So giving away those services for free, for example, it's not a great business tactic for me. I can't put money on the table if no one's paying for the services. But at the same time, I love being able to meet people where they are, and the ghostwriters that you engage with should be able to meet you and offer some flexibility in finding a payment structure that matches your needs and allows you both to find something that's fair. The last step is a contract, and I encourage anyone who's working with a ghostwriter to sign a contract. Put it in writing. Everything in writing, who the ownership of the work is, how the ghostwriter can be credited, the milestone payments, the monthly payments, whatever the payment structure is. All of those things should be written down because things can get messy if they're not. It's just easier. It's easier. You can actually go online and find like sample contracts that are pretty easy. I've used a couple times. It's a lot of peace of mind to be able to have all of those things down, and it just allows everybody to be on the same page. You don't want there to be any uncertainty as you continue forward with your ghostwriter about any effort, any step in this process. I remember one of my earlier projects where the contract was really helpful because in the contract it was stipulated that I would be credited in the acknowledgments. And after we completed the draft, I received a draft of the acknowledgments and I read through it and my name wasn't there. The author had thanked their dogs for helping with the book, somehow forgot to thank the person who ghostwrote it. It was a lot easier for me to turn around and raise my hand and mention that this was listed in the contract, and it was easily fixed. If that had not been listed in the contract, and I was trying to make that point later, oh, you promised this, things get weird, things get complicated, things get dicey. I know it's frustrating to go through that process, but it's just peace of mind for everybody. It's going to make things easier down the road. And if there's any doubts or any concerns or any issues, they can be cleared up by what's in the contract, including walking away. You know, if you decide or the ghostwriter decides at some point that this isn't working out, the contract should stipulate that you should be able to walk away at any point, and basically that you would just pay for whatever services had been completed to that point. So maybe it's a partial payment or a full payment or whatever the case may be, paying for the services that have been completed, and then everybody moving forward from there. It's just easier to have that in writing. It's going to make everything easier down the road, and I highly recommend, if you end up engaging with a ghostwriter and moving forward with them, to put it in writing. We covered a lot of ground in this video, but as you move forward with this process, there's so much more to learn about books, about writing, about production, about editing, publication, promotion, all of those different things. So many things that you can learn. Because I want you to be as informed as possible about every step in the book writing journey and the book publishing journey, I created a course with a friend and collaborator of mine, Nate Woodbury. It's called Good Book Blueprint. Just head to goodbookblueprint.com and follow along as Nate and I talk through the entire book process from beginning to end. Just cover a lot of the questions you're probably going to have as you engage in this process and as you begin taking this journey. I'm just so excited for you as you embark on this book journey. It's an awesome journey. There's a lot of struggle and ups and downs, but getting to the opposite side of that and sharing your message with the world is the most awesome thing, and I'm so excited for you to begin that process. And you know, if there's any tips or insights that I can help provide on that front, I'm really happy about that. Remember, a good book can change your life. I'm Dan Good. Thanks for watching.